Pretty active morning, but transitioning into a much calmer evening. And while I want to say calm conditions will persist through the week, not exactly our story. You can see that severe weather risk in place for our Wednesday. So while Tuesday sees some storms in the forecast, by Wednesday, a few of those on the stronger side. We'll break that down here in just a moment using something that we have, a product where we can assess the jet stream, assess the fuel, and really apply that to that forecast by Wednesday. So we'll look at that active pattern, see how it pairs with the rest of our week. And I promise there is good news in the forecast. And while our eyes are on Wednesday, we're really keeping our hope by the end of the week as that drier air persists. But rain chances do push out that oppressive heat. So while rain chances are in the forecast, it's not going to feel the 100-degree forecast that we had this time last week. So the first 12, we are going to be mild, right around our average there in the low 70s to start out your Tuesday morning. Chances of rainfall building in by the morning hours and really building in during the afternoon. Again, we'll assess that county by county in just a moment. Where we saw the rain chances today, and honestly a few severe weather reports, was down in Biloxi. 83 degrees right now, dew points in the low to mid 70s, so a little bit more of a moist atmosphere down there. Makes sense. They're right off the coast. Honestly, not a bad place to be with these temperatures. But 77 degrees in Boonville, dew points being in the mid 60s. That's showing how much we can cool off, and with dew points remaining lower, the drier air sticking around, then that means a lot of us going to be able to cool off for the start of our Tuesday morning in a very nice way for that morning commute. Again, looking at low temperatures in just a moment, but either way, it's feeling much better than it was last week, and we will take that for sure. Greenville, 75 degrees. Saw some rain chances there earlier on today, so that's why dew points are a little bit higher. But either way, we are dry throughout North Mississippi tonight and definitely not seeing any severe weather. Even that threat along the Gulf Coast has cleared out, so we're expecting a calmer forecast down there as well. But looking towards Tuesday, that threat starts to build back in towards Tuesday afternoon along those Gulf Coast regions once again. So our friends there at a Panhandle Weather going to be tracking out those storms, and even into southern Georgia, seeing that level 1 threat stick around. But that level 1 threat by Wednesday redevelops for us, and that's where we're going to see parts of Grenada, Kosciuszko, even up there towards Holly Springs, pushing out west along the Mississippi River. That's the primary focal point, but the positioning on this could very well shift. One of the things that we're watching is the positioning of a frontal boundary, and if that starts to move a little bit more east, then we could see that threat expand, something we'll look at in just a moment. But there's a look at your front. The warm front really south of Tupelo, south of Oxford. So that's why if you're in Iuka, Boonville, towards the Amory area, Tupelo, Pontotoc, like I mentioned, the dew points are a little bit lower. The moisture not yet climbing this far north here in Mississippi, whereas Macon, Louisville, towards Kosciuszko, even down there towards Chula, seeing dew points a little bit elevated. And it's because that warm front has lifted a little bit more north, but still sandwiched right halfway between our North Mississippi coverage area. So a tale of two forecasts, I guess you could call it, as we entered those overnight hours. But as we look up north, that's where the elevated severe weather threat remains, including severe thunderstorm warnings continuing to be issued at the 9 o'clock hour there in the Dakotas. But we're talking about this front being our story tonight, tomorrow, and into your Wednesday. So let's track out how that position changes. By the time we go overnight, look at how little the movement is on this setup, and even out there towards Little Rock with additional chances. This is as those rain chances and storm chances wrap around that low pressure center. So where the low pressure system remains, that's where we're going to see an increased chance of rainfall and an increased chance of storms. So Tuesday morning, for a lot of us along the Mississippi River, seeing those chances stick around, that's that 10% we're talking about. And by 9 a.m., Greenville out towards Clarksdale and Cleveland, we're watching that for you with some storm chances possible, looking very similar to what we had this morning on positioning, showing there's not much movement on this overall setup. So get the rain gear ready, especially if you are west of 55 by the afternoon. A redevelopment could take place with some increased chances, 20 to maybe 30% at most, but that's where we'll keep it for those afternoon plans. So keep the rain gear ready, basically keep it on standby just in case you have to use it, but don't go into the day expecting, hey, my area is going to be the lucky one. We're the 20%. Because that means 80% are remaining on the drier side. Temperature-wise, we're in the low 90s, so that's actually at average, if not for a few locations, below average. So we're faring better as long as those rain chances stick around. But that's not going to be the case throughout the entire week. We're looking at that overall analysis through the entire work week coming up in a little bit. But coming up in the next 60 seconds, our Emily Leonard joins us with what's going on here in North Mississippi with Mississippi Live News.
I have been going to Tupelo Smiles my whole life. When I was a kid, I was unhappy about some uneven coloring on my teeth after getting my braces off, which at the time there really wasn't a fix. I was recently made aware of a solution that would totally fix it. which is exactly what we did. They not only heard my concerns, but they never stopped looking to solve my problem, and that's why I love Tupelo Smiles.
Growing up, Gabe was naturally curious. When he began to discover weather, Gabe just didn't want to know what was happening, but he wanted to know why it was happening. Gabe became fascinated with tornadoes, and it impacted his life. He wanted to pursue a career in meteorology. Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.
Hello, everyone. Good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard. This has been a hot topic that isn't cooling down anytime soon in Tupelo. CC Augustus Center is getting renovations, but a new pool isn't coming anytime soon. Tupelo's 2027 capital plan set aside $800,000 for center improvements, while a pool or a splash pad project will not get funded until at least 2029. The full pool project would cost $2 million, and officials say it's not just the upfront cost, but it's the long-term upkeep. A 10-year projection shows the pool costs $85,000 and will only bring in $25,000. Ward 4 Councilwoman Nettie Davis says the pool's a must, calling it something the community strongly supports. Mayor Todd Jordan says the city is still weighing its options, including building a new pool at a different location entirely. Fannie Lou Hamer's story is getting a new digital home. A refreshed driving tour just relaunched, letting visitors visit 10 locations tied to Mississippi civil rights icon's life. Each stop now includes archival audio of Hamer herself, alongside current video, news clippings, and photographs.
The tour brings Hamer's life and legacy directly to the people who need to know it most. For students, this tour makes history come alive. It shows that the fight for justice did not happen far away. It happened on familiar roads, in local towns, and through ordinary people who chose extraordinary courage.
The tour adds a new site to the M.W. Stringer Lodge in Jackson, where Hamer helped found the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party in 1964. One final video drops Friday covering Hamer's historic testimony in Atlantic City, released on the anniversary of that speech. You can find the full tour, learn more about her story, and how you can help keep history alive at FannieLouHamersAmerica.com. We'll also have a link to that video that you just saw on the Mississippi Live Facebook page. All right, everyone, get on it because time is ticking. St. Jude Dream Home tickets are going really fast, and this is the last week for your chance to win a 2026 Polaris Ranger, courtesy of the Dream Day Foundation. More than 9,000 Dream Home tickets are already gone, but if you want your chance to win that ATV, you've also got to get your ticket to the Dream Home now. You can call that number 1-800-456-8351, go to dreamhome.org, or hey, if you're already on the Mississippi Live app watching us, scroll down, you'll see this St. Jude logo, click on it, and you can get your tickets through there. It's super easy, and you'll be helping a lot of families never see a bill for treatment, travel, nothing at St. Jude. It's a good thing. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard. Have a great night. Reserve your St. Jude Dream Home giveaway ticket by August 28th, and you'll be eligible to win the house and the bonus prize, a 2026 Polaris Ranger, courtesy of Dream Day Foundation. Visit dreamhome.org or call to reserve your ticket today.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.
Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's meteorologist Gabe Maynor.
So storms continue to be a big part of our forecast through at least the start and middle portions of our work week. 30% Tuesday, 40% Wednesday, and 30% there by Thursday. But as we wrap up the week, head into our Friday and the weekend beyond, this is where I was talking about there is some good news we can look forward to, even for our Friday night end game as well. But this will build temperatures as dry conditions move in. We're talking mid-90s by the weekend. So it's unfortunately still summer in Mississippi, still several weeks out from where we get that first taste of fall. But nonetheless, we got to deal with the heat and we got to deal with those pop-up afternoon rain chances. Now down in Rolling Fork, an area that saw some of that rainfall a little bit earlier on, 76 degrees. But look at the dew points. We are 75 there in Rolling Fork, and it's not just there in Rolling Fork that we got to watch. It's also down in Clarksdale, 77 degrees, dew point at 77 as well. So some locations here in North Mississippi, upper 60s definitely possible, but others, mid to upper 70s still likely going to be the starting temperature heading out the door, showing that there's still an unstable atmosphere, showing that moisture from this morning is still lingering around. But look in Pittsburgh, 79 degrees, dew point at 64. Those feels like values are going to come down as well as those temperatures, so it's going to be a perfect start to our Tuesday. We just might be dodging some rain chances in the process. Now, as we look across the region, we know we have that severe weather threat in place, not for North Mississippi, and makes sense why we don't have any alerts, but down in South Mississippi, including a lot of those wind reports along the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Mississippi Gulf Coast, Alabama, and even out towards Florida. But that was a focal point several hundred miles away from us here in North Mississippi. But as we get towards Wednesday, that threat eventually shifts. But rain chances tonight, those are tapering off with increased activity back towards southern Georgia. That's going to be the focus on our Tuesday as that severe weather threat remains in place. But as we look more towards Wednesday, up here in North Mississippi, definitely the area that we are watching for. So what I put on here is something that we call jet stream and fuel. Jet stream is the winds high aloft in the atmosphere, but fuel, also known as CAPE for our weather nerds out there, it's basically the fuel in the air that allows these storms to not only fire off, but really increase in strength. So where you see those bright yellows, and you see a lot of that here in Mississippi this time of year, shows there's a ton of fuel to allow some of these storms to get going. So we're looking Tuesday at 6 p.m. While we do see an increased chance of some of that fuel and the jet stream kind of moving into our area, the northwest flow honestly doing us a favor, and there's not a ton of wind shear that's going to allow for any of those storms to increase in strength. Yes, they're possible. That's just what we get with fuel and that convective temperature, but we need some of that shear to start to move into the forecast where we could be talking about storms being on the stronger side. And as we look down towards southern Georgia, what you get right here is what we call diffluence. You see those white lines kind of separating here, whereas they're pretty synonymous over the Mississippi, Arkansas, and Missouri area. So that's why our focus is more towards Georgia and Alabama, is because there is a better winds aloft to allow for some of that support. But look towards our Wednesday. You eventually get that diffluence there here over North Mississippi, while the elevated wind speeds are going to be more towards Omaha, and that's where we expect an elevated severe weather threat. It eventually does work its way into North Mississippi, where you do have some of that diffluence, these lines kind of separating themselves, and that's going to also allow for, let me explain it this way. You know how the winds go up, we talk about updrafts? Well, diffluence is whenever they separate up top. So the fact that we have diffluence and not confluence means it's rising air. There's your weather terminology for the day. What does that mean that we need to know? There's enough vertical motion to get these storms firing off and really building in strength as well, on top of the fuel being overhead over a good part of North Mississippi to really get these storms going, and then of course the rising motion going to help those develop. But let's look ahead into our Thursday. So Wednesday, you get why there's a severe weather threat, potentially seeing that expand as we get into our Tuesday, but either way, with the chances possible, we're going to keep Wednesday circled on our calendar. Thursday, we're still getting some of that fuel in our region, so still not a dry pattern just yet, so that also keeps those rain chances around. But watch by Friday. I'm not going to spoil it for them. But there you go. There's your look at your Friday forecast. And whenever we get these blacks to show up, that shows that fuel is on the more limited side. So while we're seeing an elevated portion down there, South Mississippi and South Alabama, North Mississippi getting at least some break from the fuel, and that meaning a break from the storms as well. So make some plans this weekend. Similar to this past weekend, should be faring a little bit better. Well, I say last weekend. Friday last week. How it felt nice, a similar Friday can be expected this week. And that even carries over into our Saturday, into our Sunday before next week. Storms do eventually return and that fuel does return as well. So enjoy it while it's here. It should be a great end to the week, great weekend, but we do have those storms in advance. 11 p.m. we're 75 degrees, 72 by 2, and 70 degrees heading out the door by 5 a.m. This is an average. There will be some locations better, others a little bit worse as we head out the door Tuesday morning. But tracking those chances overnight, this warm front is going to linger in our region and allow for additional development primarily west into Arkansas. Like we talked about, these rain chances kind of wrapping around that low pressure center and trying to make its way across the river. So if you're in Greenville, Hollandale, Indianola, we're watching that morning commute for you because perhaps a few sprinkles, maybe even a few rumbles of thunder possible along that morning commute as we head to work and school. I also mentioned your locations as having the largest batch of moisture. We're in the low to mid 70s out there, whereas look up there in northeast Mississippi, 69 Iuka, 69 Corinth, 68 Red Bay, Alabama. So it's going to feel a little bit better the further north and east you go, where you're going to be further away from that moisture, and that means a better drop-off temperature. But either way, by that final bell, we're going to be back into the 90s, but this is actually below average for this time of year. So if we're maintaining that across the board, then we're looking pretty good. No complaints there in the temperature department. But with some rain chances also sticking around, and that's going to add some rain-cooled air to our forecast as well. Let's track out these rain chances that we've been mentioning. And again, we're looking west of 55 for that elevated storm threat, especially during the mid-morning time frame. Not expecting these to be severe, but brief heavy downpours, including some of those sub-severe gusts, going to be attached to those storms out there in Greenville, Cleveland, and Clarksdale. By noontime, those start to thin out, and we're going to be seeing less chances. But as we work our way into the afternoon, you can see how additional development is possible, but coverage really on the limited side. We're seeing that all the way up towards Olive Branch, Memphis, and Holly Springs, with perhaps a few more developing into the late afternoon, early evening hours, but not a ton of coverage for Tuesday. Wednesday looking a little bit different. We'll look at that in just a moment. But with it being a bit drier, the further east you go, that allows temperatures to really increase. 96 Greenville, 94 Grenada, 95 Bruce, Houston, and Amory, even 95 in Tupelo, and 94 towards the Golden Triangle. Feels like values, we're rising into the triple digits, but we're not expecting those heat advisories or warnings to be back, at least not just yet. Now, by this time next week, could be a different story. So enjoy it while it's here. Hey, this is not bad temperature-wise, especially for this time of year. But like we talked about, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, there's your additional chances of development. That 30% chance that we're talking about, that really starts to climb as we enter into those dinner plans. So bring the umbrella just in case. By midnight, those start to taper out, and we're going to be much calmer and drier overnight. Now, looking ahead towards our Wednesday morning, storms start to enter back into the forecast. So this is where we're also watching for maybe a limited severe weather threat, Clarksdale, Shelby, and Cleveland, where you're getting those darker returns. That's going to indicate where we might get some elevated storm tops, and that could result in what we call microburst, downburst, something along those lines. We've heard us mention it several times these past couple of weeks. That's the possibility with these storms by Wednesday. Not really Wednesday morning as that primary threat, not impossible though, but we're really looking more towards the afternoon to where those storms start to build once again. 72 New Albany, Tupelo, and Houston. We're 73 Greenwood, Belzona, 75 Greenville, and 74 around Clarksdale. Now looking ahead to our Wednesday and that severe weather threat like we were talking about, it's going to be west of 55 that we're watching for, but with that warm front lifting, there's going to be elevated storm chances. So 7, 8, 9 o'clock. I'm curious to see where these do develop because you see a thunderstorm there in West Point. You see a thunderstorm out towards Greenwood, another one in Cleveland by around 6 a.m. So plenty of thunderstorm activity, and depending on where those dew points are, this could increase some of that severe weather potential, even additional development in Hollandale by lunchtime. So plenty of activity possible by Wednesday, and that continues into the peak heating hours of our afternoon. Those storms developing around Corinth, around New Albany, Pontotoc seeing it for you as well, Boonville as well. So while the threat is going to be west of 55 with what we visually see, I'm not ruling out some storms in East Mississippi or at least Northeast Mississippi and the potential for some of those being on the stronger side. So do be aware that threat could shift, and don't take that threat as gospel. Just because that's where that marginal risk is issued doesn't mean storms can't happen outside of that. Seen it happen time and time again. We're not expecting a ton of reports, but where those storms do happen, I mean, if they start to increase in some storm heights or some cloud heights once again, then that could increase the strength, and that's where you're talking about a pretty impactful storm. So we're watching that all throughout your Wednesday across the board here in North Mississippi, but that best chance is going to be west of 55 with some isolated storms possible through the afternoon east of 55. 92 Boonville and Iuka, 94 Eupora and Kosciuszko, 98 towards Greenville, so we'll take some of that rain-cooled air. Just keep the severe weather out of the picture. And those heat indices still getting up around the triple digits with heat advisories not at all impossible to be put back in effect along the Mississippi River. But those rain chances over the next 7 days looking better to wrap up the weekend into the weekend. Perfect opening weekend of college football. I know it's not opening weekend for us here in Mississippi, but hey, if you're like me and a college football fan, Week 0 is right around the corner, and we are here for it. We're going to have those TVs on, and we, of course, are going to be doing our Friday night end game once again, so you'll want to tune in Friday night with what our Ethan Foster's tracking, including a few of our other folks here on Mississippi Live team that will, of course, unveiled by Friday night, but really excited to get that up and going and really get that football coverage like you deserve up and going as well. So rain chances Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, clearing out at a perfect time for those Friday night football games. We'll take that for sure. But ahead towards the weekend, we stay dry, and I know a lot of folks there in the chat happy to see that. I see a lot of us joining there in the chat. Yes, I apologize for the weird explanations in regards to some of the graphics you guys saw. I want to make it simple, and I of course don't want to confuse you. I feel like everything that is put in the show whenever I'm making the show is necessary to tell that story. So if you guys have any questions, do not hesitate. Put those down in the chat, and I will be happy to simplify that once again. Whenever you're tracking severe weather, it's just important that we cover all different products to show what all different things could happen. So I feel like it's worth our while. Ricky saying, I'm ready for cooler weather. You and me both, Ricky. I'm so ready to put a sweatshirt on every single time I come into work. And honestly, just wear a jacket and not sweat, right? We have 3 fans going in the studio, by the way. We need a little rain. Yes, we do. So we'll take that for sure. Drought conditions still sticking around, but clearing out at a perfect time. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We do love that, and we will definitely appreciate that. I'm praying for everyone to watch the weather and act when needed. Kim, you're exactly right. One thing we talk about with this severe weather threat is we're not talking tornadoes. I do want to reemphasize that over and over again, but we are still talking about storms being on the stronger side. So with that being said, don't go to the windows and watch the storms come in. Don't go to the glass doors and just hover right behind it, thinking that's going to cover you. I've seen plenty of videos. I've seen plenty of pictures of damage where those exact things are what's damaged, and we don't want to be susceptible to that. So get in a safer spot than, right outside the door on the front porch. So do what you can to stay safe. Do be mindful of the forecast and have that Mississippi Live weather app handy. Ready for some football? Again, you and me both, Ricky. We're on the same wavelength tonight. So ready to get that football going and ready for week 1 back in action for high school and week 0 in place for college football. My mom-in-law joining the chat, love the science. I know you do. I know you and Annalise both love the science aspects of this. But yeah, Annalise always asking me different types of questions on the forecast, and it's always never a like, is it going to rain? It's always, why is it going to rain? And that's the scientist that I know and love, and she always makes me, whenever I'm making the forecast, ask the why and try to answer the why during the show. So yeah, she makes me a better man and a meteorologist every single day. So as we wrap things up, appreciate everyone for joining in the chat. Feel free to join us tonight at 10 if you do have any more questions. We'll be happy to answer that as well. But like I said, do your homework. Download that Mississippi Live weather app in advance of these rain chances. That includes Tuesday for some folks, Wednesday for others. We want to stay weather aware, and that's the best way to do so. So scan the QR code and like, subscribe, and follow on all of our socials, and we will keep you guys posted in advance of that threat and during the threat and after the threat with what has happened.